So in this video, we are looking at another application of annuities, and this is for something in Australia that we have called superannuation. Now, the regular payment into a superannuation fund is an example of an annuity. Now, superannuation is basically money invested while you are working. So when you are working, basically your employer has to take money from a certain percentage of your pay, it's around 9.5% of your income in Australia, to a super account. And this account, basically, as it accrues money, it gains interest. So that basically when you retire, you can have access to this money in your retirement. Now, this example is very similar to the one in the previous video in that we are looking at one of these tables and looking at the mechanics for how this annuity basically works. But with superannuation, where it differs from the loans is that this is a type of investment. So the money is going up. Instead of the balance of the annuity going down, like with a loan, because we're trying to pay it off, here the balance of the annuity, with each payment received, it goes up instead of down. Now, just reading this question, it's saying Michael is age 60 and planning to retire at 65 years of age. His current superannuation fund has a balance of $500,000 and delivering 7% per annum compound interest, and he's making a payment of $20,000 each year into the super fund. So we are looking at this table and trying to find basically these unknowns here. So let's just look and examine this and see how it works. In the same kind of way as the loans, we have our balance here. We make our payment and we have interest earned as well. So this is interest based on this value, okay? So we have our interest charged on this previous amount, the 7%, and then we have our principal increase, right? So it's not a principal reduction like in the last video, it's going up. So instead of subtracting them, we are adding these two together to get our principal increase. And then at the end of the first payment, the balance on our annuity goes from $500,000 to $555,000. Then the same thing happens, right? Interest is charged on this amount from the previous payment. We add the payment and the interest to get our principal increase. And as we can see, the interest earned, that's getting charged this percentage of 7% on a higher value every single time. So it makes sense that our interest earned is going up every single time. And our principal increase is going up by more and more and more every time. And the payment received obviously stays constant. So let's go through this. We're trying to find the values of A, B, and C. Now, to find A is our interest, right? So we have to consider this 7% compound interest on this amount from the previous year. So to do this, to find A, we have our future value that we want to find based on the present value, this one, with the rate applied. So I'll just write down the future value formula just so it can kind of ring a bell. So here, our present value is $613,850, and it's 1 plus 7%, so 1.07. And this is just 1 year that this is accruing. So we're going to put the power as 1. And we can see here that it'll give us, once we put it into our calculators, $656,819.50. Now, are we finished yet? No, because we're trying to find the interest earned. So here, to find our interest earned, we have to take our future value minus the present value. The interest is just the difference between those, what we actually made. So here, interest equals future value minus present value. So we have 656,819.5 minus 613,850. So our interest, our value of A, is $42,969.50. So this is our value of A. Okay, now that we have that, we want to find our principal increase. Now, our principal increase is just the payment received plus our interest earned. So for part B, our principal increase equals our payment plus the interest. We're plussing this time because it's an investment, so it's going to grow. So here we have our payment of $20,000 plus 42,969.50, which gives us $62,969.50. Okay, so last part, looking at part C. Now that we have our principal increase, let's actually label this. This is B. Finding C now, we just want the balance of the annuity. So the balance of the annuity is the amount we had at the end of the previous payment plus our new principal increase. So let's actually write that in. So the balance equals the previous balance plus the principal increase. Okay, so looking at this, we have our previous balance, which was $613,850 plus our $62,969.50. So we have here, adding these two together, that gives us $676,819.50. Okay, so this is our value of C here. Now let's just do a sense check real quick. We anticipate this value to fall somewhere in between this one and that one. So it does check out, right? We know C, it will never exceed this one, and it shouldn't be less than this one. It should be somewhere in the middle, okay? If we get something that's bigger than this one, we've done something wrong because we expect it to increase at the end of every payment. But this is how our superannuation works, and it's basically an annuity that we're still adding each payment, but we're charging interest on the previous year. And this just continues by this pattern. So we have our balance, we get interest on that, we make a payment, we add those two to get our principal increase, and the principal increase gets added onto the previous year's balance of the annuity, and this continues to go up and up and up. But that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.